Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. So, here where I live in the United States, there's a big feast coming up called Thanksgiving. In other countries, there's feasts of all different kinds in communities and for religious reasons and for family traditions and for all sorts of other holidays and gatherings of human beings. There are reasons to bring people together and have food. And I am just really here to bring today out this idea that we have to be scared of that. Because you've failed or because you've tipped over the edge or because you wound up overeating in the past at these particular feasts, you need to be very, very careful and vigilant and watch yourself and make sure you don't eat that thing when you go to the feast. And it can kind of like almost work you up into this incredible frenzy of nervous anxiety around food. With food as the concentration. There it is, being itself, laying on plates and in dishes. But oh my God, it's something to be incredibly frightened of. Alcohol, for the person who has drank alcohol. You're going to be around somebody who smokes cigarettes and you used to smoke. Oh my God. I'm not saying there isn't a challenge with that when it's right in front of you. But I notice the joy of awareness that it is possible for any person to actually completely lose interest in those substances or behaviors or items that we think are so great and so pleasurable, and actually just not even engage. Really, there is a underlying sense of not engaging with your own stories, your own beliefs. I found so often the reason I was eating off balance was because I had emotions that were off balance and thoughts that were off balance, and they weren't necessarily about food and eating, although there were plenty that weren't really accurate and kind of weird, and about all the dangers of food and eating and what I needed to do to control it. But also, it's the same exact kind of beliefs about people, family, friends, people we're close to. They're all going to gather, and I need to be vigilant. I could potentially be in danger. They might hurt me. They might say something. They might not like me. I need to be pleasing. Just some of the same emotional experience of fear or anticipation or worry. Very natural, very normal. I myself can wonder. I wonder what it's going to be like when people gather. Some family I haven't seen in a really long time. But I notice if I feel supportive, willing and able is able. We're all able. But sometimes I haven't felt so. Willing and able to be deeply supportive of myself. No expectation that those people are going to have anything changed, that they're going to be as they are, and I can really even let go. I don't need to bring anxiety or fear or like, I'm going to stay for 5 minutes and then leave. Wouldn't it be something to question the belief that there's something so uncomfortable about being around these people or being around all this food that I need to either put up a bunch of barriers to myself or have a lot of pre-planning in place, or that I'll go wild. Maybe it's not so, doesn't have to be so black and white, so all or nothing. It could be that the thing that I more talk about addiction, like compulsion, is just believing there could be so much danger. Believing in the black and white process of time spent with others where food is shared, or that it has to be more than it is, or it has to be a really big deal. Who would you be without that story? Who would I be without the story? I need to be careful. I need to be on guard. I need to have a bunch of plans in place. And it doesn't mean not bringing yourself some support. As we know in 12-step programs, people can set up incredible support for themselves, doing life differently in some of these types of situations when you are with family and friends who have maybe triggered things If some family triggers things that are very, very old, that have been disturbing, really troubling from our lives in the past. But just to be able to hold that there's nothing that is big enough to make the decision to hurt yourself the best decision you could make. And of course, if that does happen, you don't even have to be that upset about that either. If you do wind up eating something or tasting something or anything, any of the behaviors we human beings do, you don't have to be super angry or super upset. So I just wanted to share one little very sweet story. I was working with somebody for a while on food and eating issues, and she was definitely choosing to see what it was like and experiment with quite a strict food plan, but it was a maintenance type of food plan that this is what you eat in your life. You're not trying to lose weight. You're not trying to severely restrict. This is just what you eat in your life, and you see how it works, and you don't eat some of those more highly chemicalized foods that, tend to draw people and draw really strongly our taste buds. So she was cutting out all that and feeling pretty good about it. And then one day, after quite some time, there was sort of an emotional experience of emptiness and loneliness, and she just wound up eating sweet stuff, eating sugar, candy, packaged things, even quite a bit of it. But I loved what she shared. Just like the next day I got right back on track. I just noticed, didn't really feel that great, certainly didn't solve the problem. Although, not that any of this is logical and problem solving, but it just feels so compelling in the moment because it kind of works for a little while. There's some pleasure offered. We sort of change the channel from this empty, lonely feeling or our aggravation or whatever it is to, just pleasurable food. But she just noticed sleeping overnight and the very next day getting right back on track. And isn't that what any of us would want to do? We all know the other way of it, where we just think that there's almost some relief in getting off track because that the rigidity that we were holding was so freaking intense. I can't believe some of the things I've done with food and eating about this massive control and almost having like a moral, that there's a moral value. You are a very, very good person if you stay perfectly on track, and you're a bad person if you eat that thing over there. And even if you start eating that thing over there, just notice how you keep eating it and you can't stop yourself. Just holding the principle of kindness and compassion and noticing and all the dance of emotions and tastes and gatherings of people. Who would we be without our story that there's something I need to brace myself from as I enter a room full of people, or even a room that is empty, that has food in it, or empty space in any kind of a day. But as I think about a feast, who would I be without the story that I need to worry about that feast? Really interesting how the mind will really believe you need to worry. You need to be on guard. You need to look at reality as it's dangerous. You need to watch out. Be careful. Who would you be without the thought that you need to do that? I just find I want to take a deep breath immediately. And that even if you do take a bite of something or do something like this wonderful inquirer did, she just knew, it's really not that big of a deal. She had had an experience in her life of recovering from heroin, for crying out loud, as well as other street drugs. And she was in a way better place than she ever once had been. So there was no ever going back to that. She just lived quite a long time, clean and sober. And this was just a candy experience. And her attitude was like, it's nothing compared to where I once was. And I thought that was actually just so light, so easy. I know sometimes a heavy binge does not feel like nothing. I know it feels devastating, horrendous, life-threatening if you really, really stuff yourself. You're just actually in terrible pain. If you're bulimic the way I was at sometimes bulimic episodes, it's actually extremely hard on the body. If you're starving and restricting yourself, it's the same flip side. It's just disordered thinking, off balance thinking. It's just that you think that restriction is required. I mean, that's the extreme, like intense control and perfection. It's like how little can we have, which is totally no fun either. No fun at all. But just to hold these two things in this idea today that I'm sharing as a feast is coming, since I've heard it. On the one hand, question the belief that you can't be trusted, that you're an addict, you have to have everything in control, you have to do everything perfectly, you have to manage. Is that actually true? Who would you be without that story? That you could even holding that and noticing that you have the same thoughts about people. Manage, control, make sure they don't hurt me, make sure I'm pleasing, whatever. Who would it be without that story? And can I turn that around? I do not have to manage. I do not have to control, be vigilant, put up the shield, make sure I don't react, whatever. I don't have to make sure anything, especially not even in this moment. This moment now is quiet and there's nothing happening yet. But even as I go over there and picture it, just be relaxed. Relaxed. Turning the thought around again, that one. My thinking is, I need to control my thinking and vigilance and fearful and stories. My stories that lead to being afraid and thinking I can't trust myself and can't trust these other people and can't trust the experience. And just, what a relief to be able to imagine, just sitting in a chair. I've had all these family gatherings since the days of binging and agonizing and feeling awful. Or I just wind up sitting in a chair, just looking around the living room, not thinking that I need to get up and go talk to anybody special, and just noticing somebody comes to sit next to me and we might have a fabulous conversation. That drinking alcohol is not required and overeating is not required. That actually, a lot of people, there's talk about the food and how great it is, but we all are sharing with each other in ways that have nothing to do with the food and eating. It's just something that traditional that we all do, is we share food, and that's beautiful. It's this wonderful hospitality we all share together, community. And then that other thought, the other, so I don't have to be vigilant. The other side, I could just go and do and eat whatever I want that day. Free range, I'm going to stuff myself because I've been holding so much over here. Usually there's a swing. There's that idea that Janine Roth said when I first heard it, and I kept noticing it was so true. For every diet, there's an equal and opposite binge, freedom breaking out of the diet. So why would I also want to hold my feast of a day in that particular way too, winding up bloated and stuffed and uncomfortable and sick to my stomach? If you feel good doing that, maybe that's okay. I just notice I feel much happier. I've got so much aggravating kind of thoughts about being overly full and uncomfortable and sick to my stomach. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to even get close to that? It's just not necessary. It's like looking at all the beautiful food and being with it and tasting, but also always holding this, stopping when the body is done. It leads the way. And noticing how much other love and support and pleasure is here in the moment that has nothing to do with food and eating. And I think anyone can notice that. It is a tricky thing. I do, my heart goes out to all of us in the awareness that it feels like it's been hard to find pleasure. when you don't have these things that give immediate and instant pleasure. Hard to find pleasure with your family or with a whole crowd of friends or with those same people that you have this feast with every year or that celebration, that sometimes there's a difficulty. Can I find pleasure there? But see if you can. It's examples of turnarounds. Could I find examples of how I'm really okay in this moment? I'm safe. It's possible to access peace. I can just breathe deeply, take a break if I need to, get loving support. There might be somebody who's so sweet and kind that I don't even realize how kind they actually are, and they've been in my family for years. You never know. You might get surprised. So not required to hurt yourself with food or actually plan a big smashing, giant gorge, and not need to plan how much control you're going to need because you're going to be in an inner battle, but just to relax. Relax and know that loving support is available to you, even in your mind. You don't have to believe your stories. You don't have to believe your thinking. You can just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Relax. Have patience. Rest. Lie down if you need to. I love the lie down. Just hear the words, lie down. Lie down. With the thoughts that are in your head that start to want you to take action and go do something. Eat something. Quick. Say, like you're talking to a dog. Say, lie down. Good dog. Lie down. You just sit in a chair and say that internally. Seeing your body, connect with your body and a feeling sense you have of the room. Look around and notice. Nothing is required to be said. Nothing is required to be eaten. Nothing's required to be done. Nothing is required. Neither one of those two extremes. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to control whatever I want. Just letting the mystery unfold in those days ahead with holidays. Who would you be without your story? Could be very exciting and fun. Let me know how it goes.